I need to leave at 5:30, just
Okay.
FYI.
We'll speed it up.
Just kidding.
I think we have quorum, can we call the meeting to order? I'll do a motion for this, I always forget. No? Okay. So let's, first thing on the agenda review and adoption. Do you have a chance to look at the agenda? It looks like, I'll say this, I might regret it, could be a short meeting, but we'll see. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move we adopt the agenda as presented.
Can we get a second?
I second.
And all in favor say aye.
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 So done. That's my new thing. Approval of the minutes from September 13.
I move we accept the minutes as presented.
Can I have a second to that?
I second it.
And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes approved.
Once again, those minutes were excellent.
Oh, I want to thank you because I missed the meeting because I was on a trip and I felt so caught up by reading the notes you took from the September meeting.
Oh, okay, with the, excellent, it's like a story.
And was there any public inputs or questions from the public?
Not that I have heard.
Okay, so we will move on along to item number 5. Policy, meeting room policy.
Yes, and so our management team, along with some of our staff, have reviewed and have included some potential edits and additions or changes, and I have asked Patrick to speak to some of those since this particularly applies to the larger meeting room space at Chanhassen.
Yeah, the main thing we changed is based on patron demand, is we always have patrons calling, and like I had a woman today, is I have a Zoom meeting, I need to reserve a room to do that. And our policy's been we don't reserve rooms for individuals to do things. But we're getting so many demands on that. Our individual meeting rooms we do have, we're not gonna take reservations for and monitor those. That just would be a nightmare. So we're gonna turn one of our bigger rooms, the Lovelace room, into a room that you can reserve. So that's the main, so you see here throughout, it's always saying group or individual now, where it just used to say group.
So
I
is
think
it first come, first served then?
on the
or-
small, we have small meeting rooms.
Right.
We have 5 small meeting rooms that are first come, first served. Then we have 4 meeting rooms you can book. And the change to the policy would allow us to book one of those, the Lovelace room, to individuals.
Is Lovelace the one next to Longfellow?
Yes,
Down
it's
there?
that small little one.
Okay, it's like a double small one,
Yeah.
kind of, okay.
And then we rewrote, which I didn't bring here because they're not policy, but we've rewritten the guidelines as well to reflect this, if you approve this change.
I have some questions about it. First, let me give a little of my understanding of the relationship between policies, regulations, procedures. To me, the policy is an expression of what we're trying to accomplish, what is it, and why we're doing it. The regulation tells how we do it. What I've seen over the years is a lot of people get those confused, and they start writing procedures into policies, or putting essentially what should be a regulation in policy. That leads to nothing but nightmare. And what I want to emphasize is that we want to leave this so that it is clear that the meeting rooms are under most circumstances free for people to use, that they are open to the public, and that any meeting held is open to the public, with the exceptions of certain conditions. Now, those conditions would fall under the regulations, because I would expect the library staff to have a much better handle on what, within our policy of all meetings are open to the public if it occurs in the library, unless under these situations, which is, where is it? You know, such as interviews or meetings of similar activities. For instance, a Zoom meeting could be a very private meeting, but at the same time, it's on public property. And I'm a strong believer, if it belongs to the public, it belongs to the public. And, you know, a question that came up in my mind is, what happens if a lawyer decides they want to have a deposition? You know, would we allow them to use the meeting room as for depositions? I don't know. You know, that's not something that I've done a lot of depositions, but I don't do them in libraries. I have been in public facilities for them though. I'm the guy on the, you know, being inquisited end, not the inquisitor.
Yeah.
But the only reason I brought this up is in the second or third paragraph there, it makes a reference to described above. And that gets dangerous because I don't know what's described above.
Okay.
So that was just a long way of saying we've got to be real careful about referring to something else, even if we repeat it again. You know, I've seen that done where, in fact, I've done it myself, where you literally repeat the same wording again. So there is no question about what you're referring to, like described above.
Okay, well, we can rewrite that.
It's just a matter, I have no problems with what you're doing here. My only problem is to make sure somebody else doesn't misinterpret it. I don't care if they misinterpret it as long as we interpret it clearly.
I understand that. I only have questions like individuals may, and just for clarification, because everything that's in orange, I'm assuming is what's added on.
Mhm.
So individuals may also use meeting rooms for occasional use, such as interview meetings and similar activities. And then for profit or individuals may reserve meeting for a fee. My question would be if there is any individual that decides to, for whatever reason, does it for religious reasons or political reasons, where would it fall under?
Well, right now, political groups and religious groups can use the rooms.
Okay. Okay. But that will become under the top, the first one, and rather than the second one, right? Second category, right, of the two individuals and for-profit groups.
Right.
Okay.
That's how I would read this. The first one, I read the first one saying this is free for these reasons. It's also free to individuals, but if you are charging money or making money out of it, then you got to pay a fee.
Okay, got it.
Or if you're too rowdy of a religious or political.
Right. Yeah, either way. I think that's covered further down. I think it
How
does
do you
mention
measure
that.
rowdy?
I don't know.
So any group
You're-
or individual
depends
who
on the
abuses the
person.
meeting privileges can be denied future use of the meeting room. Yeah.
So how busy have the rooms been getting back to
Oh,
pre-pandemic booking then?
Yes, very much so.
How much do we charge if it's a for-profit?
I don't have the fee schedule in front of me.
But there is a
I-
fee
Yes,
schedule.
yeah.
Okay, got it.
Um,
The only other, sorry.
Is it generally local?
I have no
groups?
idea. I mean, we don't ask. I know the group I booked today is all Southwest Metro.
Mm.
It's an international plane model club. So yeah, it's normally from Chanhassen and Prairie, in my experience. I'll check if I can find the feed for you.
And now policy things is more regulation. Like when they book, do you say you can book 1 hour at a time, or do they book like can they?
They can book all day. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like we just had an all day, well, most of the day, from 11 to 4 training.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm good with that. I guess if you
So,
want to
so,
address.
so Frank, you want me to deal with this such as individuals using it as described above, get rid of described above and restate
Yeah,
that? Okay,
yeah, that would be fine.
okay. All right, so I can bring it back next month with that change.
Okay.
Well, since Matt isn't here, I'll just, I'm sure he'd be saying, we need to be as open as possible for as many people as possible and to make it easy and keep the library as a gathering place. So if this helps to clarify some of the issues, I think it's good.
I understand the change, but have we had any issues with people gathering or use of it at all that you are familiar with or
The
aware
main,
with?
the main thing, it's in the guidelines, not in the policy, is people don't put up the chairs and tables. That's really the only main issue we have. When people show up, they are not rowdy, they're very respectful of who comes after them.
Mhm.
They're just a little, don't follow that rule too well. Which again is in the guidelines, not in the policy.
Thank you.
So would you also suggest, Frank, paragraph 4, line 2, activities or meetings that create excessive noise or significant safety hazards such as, so we cut those examples and just say create excessive noise or significant safety hazard are not allowed?
That might be safer, and then you can, specify what those would be, like birthday parties and wedding showers and such in the procedures or.
Okay. So move to proceed.
And that gives more flexibility if, for instance, you decide that, well, let's say a wedding shower would be appropriate for whatever reason. It isn't necessarily forbidden by policy.
Okay. Okay.
I guess I like leaving as much flexibility for the people who actually know what's going on to adjust accordingly.
Well, and my experience with the people who book the meeting rooms, sadly, is exactly the opposite. They want the policy to answer all the questions for them, so they don't have to decide this gets and this can come and this can go. So they want the policy to be.
Well, that's why directors get paid.
I know. Well, these people are not directors. People are I totally understand what you're
Well, that's
saying.
why librarians
It
get
almost feels
paid.
like when they ask you questions like this, they're asking for what's the limit I can push.
Yeah. All right, I'll make those changes and bring the policy back.
Thanks, Patrick.
Yeah, of course.
Next item we have, going down to 6, which is the board attendance to MLA. I think MLA is coming up end of this month, if I believe it's right. And I was thinking of going, but I think we're supposed to communicate with Susan to help schedule with that, but go ahead.
Sure, nope, you're right on with that, Charles. It's coming up at the end of October, October 27th and 28th in Duluth. And there's an opportunity for any of you that would like to attend to be able to do that. I believe pre-registration is closing within a couple of days this week.
Thursday, yeah.
This Thursday, so we'll want to get you in contact with Susan Blatz. But a trick in that right now is that our phones are not working in admin. So either I can leave you all with my cell phone and I can get in touch. We can get in touch with
Okay,
you,
email
or
her.
you can send an email to Susan. One of those two options would work, so.
So
How
far,
much budget do you have for how many can go? Is
I
there a
think we have
budget?
enough for as many of you that would like to go, so. I think
Are
we-
any of the sessions hybrid at all?
That, I don't know.
it didn't appear that way. I get emailed about it, and I didn't see an opportunity there because it was so wonderful the last 2 years I did attend it, and both days. Heidi mentioned one time 2 months ago that they would have a session for trustees. One session, and I wondered which day it was, Thursday or Friday.
Well, Jim's usually pretty involved in that content.
Mhm.
Waylon.
I was thinking of going, but maybe just one day. Could take both days off.
Well, that's what when the year I went, I mean, there's one day that it just seems like it's a little more focused on trustees and friends, and not that the other stuff isn't interesting, but
Mhm.
it seems more like for librarians.
Mhm. Last
Yeah.
year, you presented with Kristen Snyder and Jim.
Mm-hmm.
And it was excellent. Of course, year before you did the same. Are you this year?
I am not this year, so taking a little reprieve from presenting at this year's conference, but I think it's gonna be fantastic, but, I don't know, I haven't looked closely at the schedule, I have to admit, so, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely easier to consider when it's in the metro area.
And next year, I believe it'll be back in St. Paul,
Okay.
so.
Okay.
Pencil me in.
Although
Okay.
what's on the website's not helpful. The sessions are session 6.
Yeah,
No topics yet or speaker or
Not-
they're
not
still
what I'm
building
looking
it
at.
up?
Not what I'm looking at. Sorry.
I think that was like the conference I went initially 2 weeks ago. It's like this session, and like, what are you talking about? Yeah. And then by the time you register for it, it's filled. It's like, I get it. So. Next item on the list is administrative report. Did I miss something?
No,
No?
summer reading program,
Oh, okay.
7-1.
Summer reading program. Is that Paul?
So, good afternoon, good to see everybody. In your board packet, you should have a copy of the evaluation report. If you need an extra copy, if you don't have that with you, that I have here tonight. And then I left at your seat at the table copies of some of the sheets that the kids use, and I'm going to go over those in a second. So if I can, I'm just going to talk through a little bit of the, not read, that would be redundant, but the executive summary at the top of the evaluation report. Our resources, and then we reference those on page 3 of the evaluation report with a very high-level summary of income and expenses. Our budget, if you will, for the summer reading program taps several different income streams. We don't have a summer reading program, we don't have a programming budget per se in the library, in the county library budget. So we rely on outside income for the summer reading program and a whole host of other initiatives. With the summer reading program, we pull together funding from our local friends of the library groups, all 6 of them make a donation, and we've held that request pretty steady over the years. The 7 years, 8 years I've been here, we changed it, we bumped it up a little bit once. The Library Foundation, and so they together, the Friends of the Library groups, provide about $7,200 in funding from the 6 groups. The Library Foundation has, for quite a few years, provided $7,000 in a donation as well. And that annual request has been approved, steady. And then our regional library system, MELSA, has provided funding. Several years ago, before the pandemic, MELSA would provide to our youth services programming or youth services initiatives, let me broader term, at the Carver County Library, individual allocations in 4 different areas. Summer reading program was one of them. Year-round program for literacy initiatives was another. Third one is STEM. And then 4th category is teen. The first year of the pandemic, the youth services team of MELSA requested of the MELSA board that rather than giving those specific allocations, because our programming and all of our initiatives were so scrambled, if you will, right, changed up during the pandemic, that it would benefit our individual library systems if we could receive that funding as one lump sum rather than those 4 categories of allocation. And that's what MELSA did. As a general guiding principle, here at Carver County, we've still stuck with those allocation amounts in a general way. It's given our youth services team some guidance on what to do and how to set parameters as we've moved forward, and it served us well. So for that then, when you take a look at the budget sheet there, you'll see MELSA unallocated based on previous allocation, and that was $4,800. And so that's approximately what we've received years past from MELSA, and we set that as a guideline for this year. Served us well. I'm getting a little long-winded here, but I just want you to be sure that you all understand at some level of detail where the money is coming from for this large initiative. The 4th funding stream, which doesn't have a specific dollar amount for the summer reading program, but our library system receives as a large block of funds, and that is from the state of Minnesota Legacy Amendment, or Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, but we call it legacy funding. And internally here at Carver County, we break that down then into 3 different program areas: adult programming, intergenerational, and youth services. And so that amount that our youth services team has on hand throughout all 12 months of the year to use for programming is, we actually use quite a bit of it during the summer, because it's the greatest, I mean, we have the youth have the most flexibility in their schedule, so we have the greatest opportunity for us to have them in. And of course, that then gets into some of, and I'll start talking about where we use that. So that's the resources area. One little bullet point on your first page of the evaluation report, but I wanted to be sure that I talk through some of where you see that on the spreadsheet on page 3. So then our outcomes, summer reading program. It's interesting, I was at a MELSA Youth Services team meeting today. That group meets about 5 times a year, and coincidental that today was the meeting date. So we were all reflecting, all the county systems that are part of our regional library system, MELSA. We were adult youth services coordinators, people like me, we were reflecting on how our summers went. And it's interesting, I think there's a lot of similarities between what we do here and what other systems do. And then other systems have greater opportunities, greater constraints that we do or don't have, right? And particularly the larger city systems, Hennepin County, Ramsey County, St. Paul Public. What we do here is we are shooting for 4 outcomes from our summer programming for youth. One is that they retain their reading skills over the summer. That is a long-standing traditional role of summer reading program. What we're trying to address is a well-known problem, if you will, and that is called summer slide, where children, if they're not engaged in learning activities and particularly in reading, is the skill level that they're at when they leave school on May 31st, June 10th, whenever it is, and if they're not engaged in some meaningful things over the summer, is their reading comprehension skills, their reading skills slide backwards. And when they start school again in September, teachers and the kids, because it's all about the kids ultimately, is they are faced with having to redo and get back up to just to where they were before. We feel our important role here is to help them retain their reading skills over the summer. How do you do that? Read, 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 right? And so that's how we make that popular or engaging is, may I borrow yours, Glenn, if I may, is in your packet of the handouts is the reading activity sheet, and we have them as age appropriate. We've got one for pre-K kids, one for elementary school age kids, and one for teens. And that's just to make fun, if you will, have it as engaging, is doing some reading. And then the way we incentivize that, if you will, is by providing them when they turn in our activity sheet, and they can do that either on a paper form or they can do it online through what we call our Beanstack system. Beanstack is the name of the software that a vendor has created for library programming. That's all this software does, is supporting library literacy and literary programming. And so they can enter their activities either online or in paper, and we data enter it onto the system, and then they're provided with a free book. And those are purchased with funding that our Library Friends group provides and our Library Foundation, right? The funding we get from MELSA has some caveats around what it can and can't be used for. So that's where the different pots of money that we manage or how they get allocated, right? So that's reading skills over the summer. Reading comprehension skills then are the, what we've called here, and many other systems also have this nickname, read, write, draw. It's a book report by any other name, right? Read, and then write about it, right? Tell us about it, give us a book review, or draw it. And of course, younger children who aren't yet forming a lot, word sentences and everything like that, or you get an artist kid like I was in my family, is Annie would have drawn a book report for every single book she read, right? So we're trying to meet the children where they are and how they can express themselves. Reading comprehension, read and then tell me about it, right? And try and make that fun. We incentivize that through the tickets that MELSA, our regional library system, provides us to the state fair, to the Minnesota Twins. Years past, pre-pandemic, but not this year, was the Crayola experience and Sea Life Aquarium at the mall. And then again, our Library Friends groups and foundation provide funding for which we purchase and then pass on to the kids gift cards for Barnes & Noble. And it's not a one-to-one. Is their name gets put into a raffle, and this is where our Beanstack system, the software, does an incredibly wonderful job of managing raffles. We get hundreds, 1,000, 1,200 kids participating, whatever the number is, I think we're 1,200. They're writing 10,000, 12,000 book reviews, and how do you scramble all that and come up with a raffle out of that? Just like that, right? I mean, and so our staff, one of our librarians is what we call our Beanstack guru, Tricia, who is the youth services librarian out at Norwood Young America in Watertown. She does a lot of that back room, that backside configuration stuff. Reading comprehension skills, book reports, and then making it fun and incentivizing it are either tickets to fun places or Barnes & Noble gift cards. And the thing we like about the Barnes & Noble gift cards especially, and this is a recurring theme that we do frequently in a lot of places, and that is reward reading with reading, right? That free book that they give when they do the activity sheet, free book. Book reviews, Barnes & Noble gift card, right? And then other outcomes, youth increase their learning. This year, and one of the big changes with the pandemic is pre-pandemic is we put a fair amount of our financial resources, and there certainly was a ton of energy and absolutely a ton of participation in going to performances. Some would be musical, some would be straight out fun like Bill the Juggler and Grodini the Magician and some other performance things. We had some STEM, some science presentations by, we still do, with the Lowry Nature Center. We had the Rad Zoo, reptiles, amphibians, you know, we've had a variety of those type of things. So learning experiences. We actually, and then the fourth one are involved in experiences that enrich our lives, and those are the performance-based things. And those we've juggled around a little bit. During the pandemic, it was hard for us to have those performances, right? So we did a lot more of the learning style things. This year, we returned back to having some performances, but each of the branches, you know, they have different facilities and opportunity as well as constraints. Some branches really backed off on performances and went for a lot more workshop-based things. Some sort of came up with about a 50-50. And that was all decided at the branch level, because those youth services librarians that are working on the front lines with the families, they know what's going to go well in their communities. And a lot of that was funded either through legacy funding or through our MELSA funding, right? And so our numbers, we had a very good summer. There are some, if you flip to page 4 of the executive summary, and it's just a bigger chart that looks like that, you'll see that our registration numbers are about where we were in 2016, 2017. We did a steady climb upwards from around 2014, 2015 up to 2019. Some of that we absolutely can credit with the engagement that we felt was brought on by the use of the Beanstack system, right? Just the ease of use, getting people registered. And then we also had some other pushes in terms of our librarians going out into schools and things. So 2022, we're not at where we were in 2019 for registrations. And we aren't yet at that place of being out in the schools and doing that much pre-summer selling of the summer reading program, but we've returned back to some of that. So I think they're good numbers, and we obviously want to keep growing and growing the number of children that are engaged one way or another in that. The reading activities, those have gone up quite a bit on the activity cards. Not all the way back to where we were in 2019, but certainly at a level again around where we were 2016, 2017. The biggie out of this that is really, really cool to see are the total book reviews written by children and teens has climbed off the chart, right? I mean, that has nothing to do, there was no blip there with the pandemic. As a matter of fact, through the pandemic, as that continued to increase. And we're at a level now where each child is submitting almost 9 book reviews over the course of the summer, which is really a very high ratio compared to where we had been earlier. So we can theorize about what some of that is. Some of that, I think, is the engagement that we're doing with the Beanstack system, and some of the accessibility that that provides to those people who want to do it online. We've even had kids do oral or like video clip based book reviews. Just incredibly creative and engaging, and you know that child is very much into it. And then some of it I would theorize, and this is just Paul's opinion, so don't put it in the minutes, Paul, or anything like that, but simply my opinion is I think this is where the correlation, the people connect the dots on the Barnes & Noble gift cards, State Fair tickets, and Twins tickets, or any of the other tickets that we have available, that they understand that there is really a direct connection between the more you read and tell us about, the more book reviews you tell us about, the more likely you're going to win that raffle, right? So keep turning them in. And so, librarians stepping back way to top level is youth services librarians when they get together at conferences and stuff. They talk about, gee, what about the days when we used to give away a bicycle? Right? We just had numbers coming off, and libraries will do that. There are friends of the library groups and libraries that will do big gangbuster gifts like, electronic things, a computer, or Chromebooks, or whatever like that. We've chosen to not incentivize it at that high level. We still want reading to really be the point. The prize isn't the point, reading is the point. But let's have some fun with it too. You also see that our attendance at story times has been very good. Children's book circulation, that last line down at the bottom, is we're again back to where we had been 2017, 2018, not quite where we were in 2019, but definitely climbing upwards. And so all in all, my opinion is that we had a good summer. We have had our challenges. There's absolutely no doubt about it. We have had challenges, for instance, is doing outdoor performances, right? Almost all of our sites chose this year in the planning process to take performances outside the building. I can most readily speak to that at, for example, Waconia, where the phrase that I use is like we're shoving kids, like sardines in a sardine can, right? I mean, we will pack 200 kids into a space that's probably designed for 50. And we just keep shoving them in as they're coming in the door. Well, we didn't do that this summer. We made a very intentional choice that we're going to take our performances outdoors, and we went up the street to City Square Park. And we're not the only one, right? I mean, did it Chaska, Chanhassen?
No,
well, you didn't have performances. Victoria, you went outside. Watertown, we don't have an outdoor place. In Norwood, Young America, we don't have quite the same size constraints. The point is that for these outdoor performances, it brings in a whole different wrinkle and a whole different level of communication when it comes to weather. And sure as shooting, our first week of summer reading program on that Monday, it was raining to beat the band, and the question of Victoria was like, what do we do? And we hadn't really worked out the kinks of the process of how early on do we make the call that we're going to cancel the event. How do we communicate with our performer and identify, are we rebooking them or just canceling? We've got a contract with them, what does that mean? And then how do we communicate it and get the word out on social media? So it's not easy. Anybody who's doing outdoor programming knows that, right? But that was relatively new to us. And so, those were some of the things that are still riding along with us as a result of the pandemic, either directly or indirectly. But all in all, my opinion is that we have got an incredibly talented group of librarians who are incredibly dedicated and work hard, especially, and we're already talking about summer 2023, right? I mean, what's today, right? October? And we're already talking about next summer. So it's a long planning process. We build on success. Somebody could say it's like cookie cutter, we do the same thing every year. I would challenge no, not really. But we do try and provide some consistency year to year. And the last point I think is for each of you is you'll see in the packet here, each branch librarian is written, or librarians, has written an evaluation report and provided pictures for your individual community. And I encourage them to keep doing that through each year that we do this, because I think it provides real frontline experiences for you all as board members to know about. And we're already starting the ask process for next year's funding, right? We've already talked to the foundation. We'll be out to the Friends groups in a couple months following this meeting here, and then trying to build up also support with outside community groups like the Waconia Alliance, who have been very generous over the years, and some other groups who make these donations either directly to our summer reading program budget or indirectly to the foundation, which then comes in this way. So I didn't put a clock on myself, but I hope that was enough of the highlights, but yet gives you enough detail to understand that it really is a very large initiative, and in spite of challenges, We really do, I think, a very good job of it here at Carver County Library.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah.
I think that was, I mean, if you look at the numbers, it speaks for itself.
It does it ever. Another thing you mentioned about, excuse me, that when children are writing, they're improving their reading, and when they are reading, they're improving their writing, and it's just a win-win situation for children. At least they might retain where they were, but in most cases, I would say they are stronger readers.
Yeah.
Comprehension, word attack, whatever it is.
I was just gonna ask, did you say, or I'm curious, how many winners were there then actually with the raffle? Do you have that number?
I'm trying to think if I could quote it off the top of my head. Yes, we know the number, we absolutely know the number.
Okay.
And I don't know
I'm
that I
just
have
curious
it
of the
here.
15,000, yeah.
I don't think it comes through here, but let me, if I may, get back to you on that. then.
Yeah, I'm just curious, it's not there.
No, I am too, you know, it was, yeah, let me get back to you on that.
Okay.
Okay, because we do know, all that is tracked. I mean, we do know how many books are given away, because that is a one-to-one relationship of completed, the third block, if you will, completed 5+ reading activities on activity card. So we gave away 1,200 on the button books to children and 143 books to teens. Okay.
Wow.
We would just need to add up from our separate areas of the Barnes & Noble gift cards, State Fair tickets, and Minnesota Twins tickets. And those are very known quantities, I just didn't have them.
Were they
summarized here.
given, were those given to us, or did we have to buy them?
Correct. The Minnesota Twins and the State Fair. Oh, and thank you for asking that, because one of the things, and coming from a guy who had worked in libraries outside of Minnesota where we didn't have regional library systems, I'm still like, you know, 15 years later, I'm still pinching myself. Is this real? We have this level of support from our community. So the MELSA, the regional library system, works with these partners, these sponsors, and they're able to do that. On our own, we wouldn't have been able to have that kind of leverage or ask power,
Right.
if you will. That's through MELSA.
I think you might want to add that, how much benefit from a dollar wise from those tickets there's a way to.
Sure, and that would be a mathematical known
Right.
thing as well.
Yeah, I think when my kids were small, we always got the state fair tickets back
Yeah.
almost 15, 16 years ago. They
Yeah.
were already giving it out.
They've been very generous. Kathleen at the Youth Services meeting today did mention that these sponsors, particularly the State Fair, they're struggling big time. Pandemic really hit them hard. So they will be, we think, we're hopeful that they'll, in 2023, provide those tickets, but it's not going to be at the pre-pandemic level. Those days are probably gone, or at least for a while, you know, and not to get too negative
No,
about
they
it.
did
I mean,
pick
it's
it
still-
up and they recover fully, you know.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, so I can get you those numbers for the next meeting. I'll probably just tuck them into my written report.
Thank you.
That was wonderful. When reading it, oh my gosh, your library sounded so busy, like beehives, all of your libraries.
We are, it is, in a wonderful way, I mean, it's just. It's what
I
we
guess the
work
next
for.
item, Jody's kind of waiting to talk to us about budgets.
Not nearly as exciting as summer reading.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you all for giving me the opportunity. And see you at your friends' meetings and foundation.
No major updates regarding, or anything specific to point out in the budget. It's just that time of year, when we start to just take a look at where we are and make sure we're on track with things. And I know Heidi mentioned this at our last meeting, some of the credit card, items have not caught up with county finance yet, so they haven't hit our budget. Because that takes quite some time on their end, so we kind of wait for that to happen to kind of give a fuller, broader picture there. Although our admin assistant Susan Blatz is always carefully tracking all of those with our accountant to making sure we're on track. Certainly, I believe there will still be some furniture purchases before the end of the year that may hit our budget as well. And then certainly this is the time of year, I mean, throughout the entire year, I know in terms of collection budget, we're always, I know Patrick as liaison, watching carefully that we're spending down that budget appropriately and watching all those numbers. And this time of year, we'll start to close in on the end of our kind of time to finish our ordering out and call for last shipment, those sorts of things. So we're just, over the next month especially, we'll be really like honing in on those pieces. So.
Just out of curiosity, are you guys already starting to look at 2023 budget, or is that kind of handed down to you, or do you work towards that?
So 2023 has been in with work sessions at the county level with the commissioners, and that will wrap up and be finalized in their one of their last meetings in December. And so now what we start to work on is actually the 2024 budget and start to build that out within, well, probably later October, early November. But so essentially that means though, and I know Heidi's alluded to this before too, we're working within 3 budget cycles all at once for a certain length of time. So, yep. Any other questions?
Not yet.
I'll do my best to be ready.
Next item is, the director's report. But Tanvi, do you have any questions you want to ask? Just check in. You're very quiet, you tend to talk a lot.
So for this month's director's report, I really primarily just highlighted Heidi's retirement and the wonderful reception that we were able to have for her, and glad that we had so many folks that were able to be there. She was really overwhelmed in a good way.
She was.
She really was. So it's just really great to be able to celebrate her. We certainly will miss her and do miss her dearly, her leadership. I think, you know, for her to receive the certificate of recognition from the governor, the word from Chanhassen, and certainly just all of the wonderful acknowledgement from many of you and staff and others. Yeah, she just is so grateful, and I know that she's been taking time to reach out to folks and say her thank yous. So.
Is there any kind of national award she'd be eligible for?
That's a good question.
Um,
I'm trying to think
The
of
New York
the,
Times does a Librarian of the Year award, but it has to be nominated by a patron, not by staff. That's the only one I can think of. The state doesn't do anything, and there's not within, like, the Public Library Administration, I'm assuming she's a PLA member, a lifetime achievement. So I think that Librarian of the Year would be the only.
How about from the president? I mean, couldn't you put a bug in his ear and say, okay. It'd be nice if something like that, you know.
And that our state
Really.
that our state would have something like that. That would be wonderful. And they're having a
President has
convention.
some kind of presentation, certificate of, yeah. Anyway.
I think if you want to get anything that's federal, you probably want to go through the state, the federal senator that's in Minnesota to submit it. Or one of the congressmen or congresswomen that to submit those requests, I think, then you will get up to that level. I think.
She looked so wonderful that day last Monday. I thought she looked like a hire rather than a retiree.
Thank you, Jody.
absolutely.
Well, Nick is not here, so get on to your
Yep,
next
no
one.
updates from Nick today.
Huh?
No updates from Nick today.
Okay. Trustee and commissioner report.
So, yeah, so if you go to my pages, which again are only pictures, there's 3 things I want to point out. One is on page 1, which is just we had book sales with the big, in September, end of September, the big Chanhassen book sale that netted around $3,000. And even though we had, I think, less books than before. We also did a small book sale at Victoria. It's in the same kind of their Volks Fest Festival. So that's on page 1. On
Can I
page,
just interject?
yeah, go.
Yeah, I was just gonna publicly thank you for all your support, and we've been sort of slim on volunteers, but we put something in the Chanhassen Villager, and we got 6 new volunteers that all said they had fun and would do it again.
Okay, that's
So
what
that
I
was
want
the
to hear.
goal. So we don't have to have people working 4 shifts in a row.
Like you.
Well, there's a couple others,
Yeah.
but yeah. But I still didn't feel totally relaxed, like, because I knew what was going on. I knew I could get a text at any time, but it definitely will be better next time if they all come back.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So thank you.
Page 2 is a new a program that a new team, the intergenerational team came up with, which is Grandparents' Day. There's a couple photos, one from Chanhassen, one from Victoria. The idea of the Generations team is to have programs not just that are all ages, but that really try to link generations. So this was trying to link grandparents with their grandchildren. The third thing I wanted to point out is on page 3, 4, and 5, which is story times return in September. We take a couple weeks off at the end of August. And the one that is unique is we started a new story time at Victoria. We started doing baby story time. And we do that before the library actually opens, because we don't have a meeting room space. So that way, there's no distractions, the babies cry, they cry, and there's no one to complain about it. Started small, just about 8 people, which is good. You don't want a bunch of people for baby
Right.
story time. And it dropped a little bit, so we're maintaining about 5. So those are the 3 things I wanted to point out. Book sale, Grandparents' Day, and story times are back. And there's pictures about other things that are going on. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick. Where was the family dance party? Oh, it's at Victoria's
Yeah.
Library, okay.
Yeah, she likes to do stuff. Again, she just has a much better space to do stuff outside.
Right.
At Chanhassen, there just isn't any good space. It's either too loud because it's by the street or too close to where people drive.
Right.
Just don't have good spacing.
Don't have a bicycle path out the back door.
Exactly.
And then, that's the Chaska one.
Sure, absolutely. So highlights today for you, which you'll see in a couple of photos regarding. We've started a Welcome Wednesday program at Chaska, which is kind of in line with Whimsy Wednesday. I have to remember the alliteration at Waconia. But Welcome Wednesdays is intended to be a passive program for all ages to come in, and there'll be some different activities each week, whether it's coloring or puzzles or games, just a way to welcome folks in and have some time in the library to gather and enjoy some activities. So that's been going over really well and starting to build that, and we are going to continue that through the winter season as well. And then for Chaska, we had a couple of great outreach opportunities that have returned since the pandemic now, one of which is the Scott Carver Project Community Connect. And so it was great to be able to send a couple of our librarians, Jeff and Margot, out to that event and work with some of our community partners and our county partners for that. And then also Officer Julie Janke led the Senior Expo up at Chaska Community Center and brought that back in action. And Jeff, our adult services librarian, I think in his report here, anecdotally said he was waiting at the table when they opened the doors, like this rush of seniors came to get help with their Libby apps, which was very exciting. So just good, great to bring some of those out of building activities and outreach opportunities back. So any questions?
Yes, it's very important. Is her math all books?
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
She make it?
I will have to ask her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Probably
we should
so.
get that one.
You could sell that at the book sale and I buy them. Yeah.
Thank you. Paul.
Well, you've heard a lot from me already. I don't know if I didn't bring my board packet with me, but I believe that in my report, I had talked a little bit about the outreach of communities of belonging. And so this is just one of many initiatives that my term is, I think of as being kind of soft. At this point, it's hard to define exactly where it's going to go and what the direct library income impact is. But I think it's important for us to keep a finger on the pulse of some of these things that are happening out in our communities. And I think it also, in terms of being self-serving, like what's in it for us, is that it allows others to see us in a maybe different light. Others that maybe don't use the library, for them to be able to see that libraries can be a moving force in the communities and can be a resource to these groups. So we'll see where they go. There's another initiative called Connect Us / Project Linkage. And quite a few years ago, predating this, there was an initiative about and I'm going to have the term wrong, so I'm sorry that I'm not pulling this off the top of my head, but the essence of it is that people who are looking to, that have needs for things like housing, food assistance, clothing assistance, mental health, a variety of needs for which our departments like Health and Human Services, Public Health, libraries and all that, so it'd be a single sign-up type of thing. And the county did put some movement and an effort into that. This is similar to that, but it's at an outside organization, and it's at a national level. And so I've been attending on behalf of the library the meetings of Unite Us / Project Linkage to see where there may be a place for the library in this. I personally believe that, what we know about libraries is that we're viewed by many people, not everybody, as being safe and independent sort of places to go. And without a lot of baggage. You come into your library and you come in, you read magazines, you do this, that, whatever, and nobody questions you about it. And so for libraries to then also be places where people can receive assistance for things that otherwise may have some stigma attached to them, we can have a role in that. And some of it may be tangential to the library services directly. One of them, though, that I think actually, and we've talked about this for a long time, as long as public computers have been in libraries, and that is where people can use our public computers to do their enrollment, do their e-government services. People who don't have connectivity in their homes, don't have computers in their homes, and that type of thing. So, at any rate, I put a little bit of that into the report here, and Jody and Patrick and I and Heidi talk a fair amount about this. Are we getting bang for the buck in terms of staff time? And we'll keep monitoring this and look for opportunities for us to serve our communities. And so on the outreach side of things.
I was just curious, like for the outreach and community partners with Career Force, and you have those coming in like
Yep.
once or twice a
Yep.
month, right?
Yep.
Do you have any kind of assessment of how well utilized is this by the community, or is there noticeable utilization by maybe some libraries more than others?
So we've got Career Force, and they've just added a family and income support representative as well that are coming out to Chaska and Waconia once a month. And we just started that over the summer. So I think we're seeing usage, but it's not huge yet. But it's a starting point that we feel is important to start to build on. Some of what we're working on some different promotional techniques, I think, too, to try to help,
People know
what's the
about
best
it.
way
Yeah.
to get the word out about that. And I think our partners at Health and Human Services are very, very on board, supportive of being able to, to to work on this together. So it's a really good thing. It's just gonna take some time to build up, to be totally honest, yeah.
I was
Yep.
just curious also, like if someone walked in, let's say it's supposed to come in on Thursday, but it came in on Tuesday, do you tell them to come back on Thursday, or do you give them a phone number to call, or how does that work right now?
We probably offer up both. We probably say, so-and-so will be here again, on this date and time, but we also have referral information back
Right.
to HHS that we can offer to them, absolutely, yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And in Watertown and Norwood Young America, we were approached by Health and Human Services if we would provide space for them to have a financial assistance professional from their department come to our facility and have a table and then be able to work with people in those communities for whom, if they have transportation challenges to get from Norwood Young America or from Watertown, there's no public transit, right?
Right.
And if they're in need of the services but can't get to them, and so we're providing space for that. In Norwood, it's in our conference room, actually, speaking of meeting room usage. And at Watertown, well, we ain't got one. So they're actually in the teen alcove.
Oh, wow.
And it doesn't quite provide the privacy you would hope for those kinds of interviews
Discussion, right.
and guidance sessions, but we're doing the best we can. So that just starts, actually, I think next week is the first session of that. And so I'm looking to Jody because we both are communicating together on this. Some of this comes out of the adult services team, which Jody works more directly on, and obviously as the acting director needs to know of all these things. But so Watertown and Norwood Young America, we provide some unique opportunities there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'll
May I
just
go
text.
next?
Yeah, I think she may have to run, but go ahead.
Well, I have to run because I have a 6 o'clock meeting, city council, I want to be sure to be there in time. But as far as Norwood Young America is going to have a book sale next week
Yep.
on a weekend, and everything's scheduled out, who's going to work what. And under the foundation, as treasurer, I've been given all the records and picked up all the information that I needed to pick up from Chaska Library, Susan. And I've been out of the loop for this last week, personal reasons. And tomorrow or Thursday, I'm going to get up to speed on the treasure part of it. I think there's a leg, So, thank you for letting me go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good meeting.
Yeah,
Yep.
have fun.
Goodbye for now.
Bye-bye. See you next week.
I
Thank you.
think the last part is, I think there were a lot of media package, is that right, or the correspondence? There's media packages only. Do you want to say anything about that? Heidi make mention about that.
Do we still have a quorum?
Yes, we do. It's 3 of us, 3 makes
Okay,
4.
it's 3's the quorum, I couldn't remember.
Yep, you're
Okay.
good.
What happens if the meeting cuts to 2 and then just adjourns abruptly then, or how does it work? Well, there's 4.
One thing I
There's 4.
promised
She's
to-
she makes the quorum too.
Well, she would technically be non-voting, is
Okay.
what we determined with,
Okay.
yep, so.
So,
One thing I want to mention, because I promised a patron that I would, the wait time is getting really long on the ebooks. The ebooks are, and I told her, they are so popular, there's been a real run on them. And, but wait time of 3 months on one of the books. So,
Actually, we've written some talking points for staff about why this is, and I'll just very briefly say, number one is during pandemic, people got hooked on these things and just have continued to use them. Secondly, a lot of that is driven, there are like a couple authors, like Colleen Hoover is one, for example, is soaking up so much of the budget to try to meet those holes that there's not enough money for other holes. The third good news is, how much was it, Jody? 150,000?
150,000.
Was just allocated by MELSA specifically to get down holes. Next year, I'm going to push for our our own budget to increase to 30% of our total collection budget to be towards digital collection.
Right.
Last year we were at 22, now we're at 25. I hope to get us to 30 next year. The last thing that's driving, there's 4 things, I don't like that. The 4th thing that's really driving it is the publishers and Overdrive, who's our vendor, know there's this demand and therefore are jacking up the prices.
Right.
A new Stephen King novel is coming out that the audiobook version of is $150.
Holy cow.
So there's only, we've just agreed, there's only these expensive ones, there's only so many we can buy, ergo the whole list
Right.
is gonna be longer. So if that person wants to talk to someone and share this, but those are the main reasons.
She was not upset about it, she was just commenting about it because she was saying, I have to slow down how fast I read
Yeah.
because it was taking longer to get the books, so she didn't want to run out of books.
Well, and the good news, bad news of all of this is we now have, because of the decision to go with one vendor for the entire metro area, we have so many more books available to us.
Right.
We also now have 7 counties all pulling on the same number of books.
Mhm.
So the consortium has worked for us. We have the highest circuit consortium in the country. We just passed $1 million, a million circulations. But every library, I just had a meeting today, Frank, and every library system is just holds are killing us. They're all taking, we just stripped, and I hate this, we just stripped money out of 2 budgets, of the Spanish language budget and the teen budget, to buy more holds for adults. So we don't have this constant, not constant, but this rather steady drumbeat of people, I've been waiting so long.
Yeah, but
It's probably not
It's-
all books, it's just the popular ones, right?
Well, yes and no. I had someone who wanted a classic the other day, and a lot of those, there's only 1 or 2 copies out there. So all it takes is 6 people wanting it,
wanting that one,
and those 2 copies, and bam, then it's 2 months.
Could you repeat what that real wacky cost, that $150?
Yeah,
That one copy of
yeah,
an e-audio?
Yeah,
Okay.
that sounds like textbooks.
put approximately, because I don't want to be held to if it's $160.
Don't quote you.
I would say put a huge increase in price, and it's to the, I don't know if this came to you yet, Jody, but the MELSA collection team is forming a letter to go to Overdrive and a couple of the publishers to say, this is just, if you want us to buy our stuff, you've got to bring the prices down. A lot of people want to boycott a couple of these publishers, which isn't going to do anything. Anyway, so yeah, that's, all those reasons are why.
When ebooks came on the market, they were selling just a fraction of the cost. They said, well, the authors were still very happy about it because they were getting a better royalty on the ebook than they were on the printed books. And the publishers were making more money on the ebooks, and they still were dirt cheap. But then they found out that all they had to do was charge a couple of bucks less than the print book, and
People still buy?
they make
No, I
more
think-
profit.
I think the pandemic thing changed the whole.
And the pandemic just
Yeah,
made
pandemic shaped the whole-
bigger demand for them.
And there's still people, we suspect because of our door count. So, our door count continues to go down, or it's a little bit steady now.
Yeah.
But the circulation of ebooks, we did a statistic, this was actually at Paul's urging, of how many new users we have a month. Every month, we have 300 to 400 new ebook users. It's not for the year, that's each month
In Carver
Yeah.
County?
in Carver County.
Well, that's enough to,
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
wow, I
No
never would
wonder-
expect
no
that
wonder.
big of a number.
Yeah, and it's similar in every other system, that every month they're adding 5, I think Hennepin is adding like 1,000 ebook users a month.
Well, that's,
Yeah, it's success breeds success breeds success breeds failure. And that's what we're worried about.
well, actually, that's
We're worried about
true.
the Yogi Berra, it's so busy, no one goes there anymore.
Exactly.
The people get so disgusted with having to wait, they decide, I'm just gonna start buying books, which we don't want.
Or just sign up for 2 or 3 at a time. And sometimes you are so surprised, you go way down the list, it even tells you how far down you are, how many are ahead of you, and all of a sudden 10 of them disappear.
Yeah.
And you're up quickly. So It's kind of fun.
Well, very briefly, this is in the talking points to staff, is how it works is you're number 15 on the list. And there's 20 copies. But suddenly a Carver County copy becomes available and you're a Carver County patron, bam, you get kicked to the front of the list. But by the same token, if you're a Carver County patron and you're waiting, and the Hennepin copy is the only one out there, and a Hennepin patron signs up for it, even after you, they get it first.
Also, so the
Ah.
county patrons get it first
Yes.
before any other county patrons.
Yes, of the things that are
Of the things
purchased
that are
in by the
available for-
individual. If it's a MELSA purchased books, then everyone is in line.
Is in the same pot.
That's why I had a woman yesterday go, how did I go to number 3? Well, here's how you went to number 3. There's one copy, I looked it up, there's one copy, and there were 3 Hennepin County holds in front of you, and those people get priority.
Good to know.
It's a good thing you asked.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to explain. Actually, what I told her to do is go talk to her librarian.
Yeah.
Call Patrick.
Let me introduce you to Patrick. He
I'm happy to explain to her, but all the librarians did get talking points on this about 4 weeks ago, about exactly why the holds ratios are so bad.
Wow.
Well, this particular lady, you will never hear a complaint from her. She is the sweetest thing. She's lived next door to us for almost 30 years. And
Well, that's making her
Couldn't have a
complain,
better
that's not
person.
good.
so I wouldn't worry that she's
Okay.
going to come in and rattle any,
All right.
any cages.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So
I
moved.
move. Second.
Second. All in favor say aye.
I
Aye.
So moved. Meeting adjourned. Meeting adjourned.